Hello,
Hello.
everybody. How is everybody doing? Do we have anybody actually in the chat right now? Or do we still need to wait for people to actually show up? It says we have 6 people watching. Hello, guys. Can you say
Well,
hello in the chat? Can you tell me that you can hear me? Somebody. Anybody.
it's all just us watching the stream ourselves.
Apparently. Probably.
Could be.
No big. Just hang out for a minute.
Oh, hey, Tom's here.
Oh, hey.
Hey, look.
Hello?
Hey,
Hey, a
Tom.
little quiet, Tom. A little quiet, Tom.
Hello?
Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, hello. Okay, someone can hear it. Ken. How's it going, everybody? Sweet.
Cool.
You never know sometimes if the chat's not really doing anything. All right. Welcome everybody as I do throw a little paint on this grace here as we get started. We are here today to talk about the sweet AoS Masters event from last weekend, the big teams event. I am joined today by co-captain, I assume Tom, with Chris and Ryan, also 2 members of Team Aqshy, which is basically our local team representing Texas and some other states.
Team Texas plus Jeremy.
Yeah, Team Texas plus Jeremy.
I was
I
coach.
think Chris was the I don't actually know who the co-captain is, but I think it's mostly just Gavin.
Mostly.
Gavin was captain. Tom was supposed
Sid-
to be coach because we thought he was going to finish his games first. But
Got it.
I did answer coach questions during my games.
yeah,
Okay. Well, it was like I knew Tom was at the table and had a big role in pairings in that nice 40-minute Uber ride to
He
the
was the one.
stadium.
Yeah. He was the one tracking our scores as the games were finishing, and also was the only one who talked to Gavin. Was the only one in the Uber with Gavin when they had our only planning meeting on pairings.
We should go into. I don't know when we're going to that, but that was a very productive conversation.
It worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
was
You
the
guys had
conversation just win all our games with Lumet, get to Night Haunt?
No, well, so like it went like we got to Boston, and then me and Gavin got like in similar times, and then we got an Uber together, and then I didn't actually look at a lot of things before this, and so like during the Uber I looked at all the lists we had and slash what they what other people had, and then basically I think I forgot which one of us decided, but let's just say me. I decided that Doc and the Soul Blood list is not. It was like good, but it was not gonna be good into his field because everyone, like most of us, had Gitz, Lumineth, Nihon, and most people also had trolls. So we just thought that every round we are going to quote unquote bust the Doc and the Soulblight list to get more productive pairings for the rest of us. That was like the gist of that 20-minute Uber, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. That kind of leads into the first question I wanted to ask, which what was the overall pairing strategy? And it was basically sounds like throw Dylan and Matt under the bus to get 6 better pairings.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Right, the
Dylan-
strength of our players.
A little bit of feedback from Ryan, I think.
Huh?
A
Oh
little
yeah.
bit of feedback from you.
Dylan and
No.
Matt definitely.
No, I mean your speaker is
Oh, sorry.
picking up the mic. We don't want you to talk, actually.
Yeah, because like Dylan and Matt are good enough players to take the losses, at least get their points, and hopefully get a little bit more, which seemed to be the case for at least a couple of rounds. And then you guys with your favorable matchups could get stronger wins. And it feels like it kind of worked considering you guys had 20-ish more points than the second most scoring team.
Yeah. The we did have 4 people go 4-0, so pretty good.
You guys took the top 3 spots in singles, I believe.
I think that's true. Yeah, I
I
think it was Chris,
like
and
Chris, you,
and
then Jeremy.
And fifth. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
fifth.
Jeremy was 5th. Yeah. It was yeah, I mean, it was basically as Gavin explained it. It was just turns out Night Haunt trolls and Lumineth pretty good. So just get as many points from them as possible, and you're gonna have a good time on points. Um, and
And when I was watching and paying attention, it seemed like you guys were able to pair your high scoring armies well enough to stop their armies that were also meant to get high scoring. Like I know Chris paired into Lumineth a couple of times, and Ryan, you basically stopped anything that went in your way.
well, I mean, trolls turns out are really good when you can pick what map they're on. So Gavin was
Yeah.
just always like, "Hey, you're gonna defend on this map on like Star Strike," and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm just gonna put 21 trolls on the objective for 2 turns, and I get a 12-point lead. Sorry.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah, seems pretty good.
With that being said, what were your overall thoughts on the event as a whole? I know Chris has done mostly some teams events online. I don't know if you've done any in person. I know for sure this was Ryan's first teams person event, and we all know Tom has done Team USA stuff. So what were your thoughts on the event and playing in the teams event as a whole?
It was pretty good. Yeah, it was a great event. They had everything organized pretty well. Gave the cost of the ticket included the stay at the hotel and breakfast, lunch. It was all taken care of, so we didn't have to go wandering off to try to find food. And yeah, there weren't really any hiccups. I think as far as organization of the event.
That's pretty
And,
awesome.
And all the opponents were great. I think when you have an event like this that people had to qualify or be picked for, that it was a lot of people who had either done events like this before or were comfortable in a competitive setting. So um, yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, as it being my first team event, also the first event that I played at with chess clocks, which I was kind of uncertain about going into it, and now after playing with chess clocks, I am a believer in them. It did convert. They were actually way simpler to like have had like work in the game and whatnot than I thought they were going to be. But yeah, no, the event was great. I mean, all the organization was really well done. All my opponents were great. Everyone that I played against, I would play against again. They all were good opponents. All were good guys. Nobody, no like bad games, even though everyone was there to play competitively, but nobody was like, nobody I felt like was giving me like a bad game, like a bad sportsmanship game or
Yeah.
anything like that. Everyone was a great sport about, the whole event.
It's one of those things where like when everybody is there with the exact same kind of like mindset, there's no real like hiccups in communication for things. Like we're all here to do a job to the best that we can. And once we're done doing that, then we have this community as well that just we all have a similar mindset for how we approach the game and also just how we handle these things in general, which seemed really cool. Tom, I'll ask you in specific, how did this event compare to like Worlds, especially being like the first time we've had an event like this of this caliber on this side of the pond?
It was very different. Because I think for a lot of the people that went from each of the region, that was probably like their first time playing in the teams format. So like,
Oh yeah.
which like changes the win condition a lot. Like for a lot of people, it's probably the first time they ever experienced like, hey, I did really well, but our team lost. Like that's like a very different mindset to get into. Like
Yeah.
if you're not used to it, it can like just like change. Like you have to like really change how you play the game. So I think that was like a really maybe I would say like maybe even shocking for like some people because it's like team events are not very common in the US. So like it's good to see like how different people react to it.
Yeah,
And you also oh yeah, go ahead.
that was okay. Like, yeah, you play differently, and you celebrate different outcomes. Like round
Mhm.
one was it round one that James got a tie against Trolls with Beasts,
Yeah.
and we were
Which was awesome.
excited. It was,
Yeah.
that tie was like as good as a 50-0 victory. That was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah,
I
if you could
was
just punch up in those bad matchups, then or you also feel like almost kind of feel like in the same way you can win a game and be like, oh well, I didn't get as many points as I feel like I should have there, even though you win your round. Like normally at a singles event, you just be like, I won my game, like whatever.
The
It
win
doesn't
is all
matter.
that matters.
Well, yeah, the win is what matters for the bracketing after this. But now there's like another extra thing of being like, well, I know that I have to win this by like X amount, otherwise, where we might actually be down on points, or I'm relying on somebody else on the team to like punch way above their weight for the matchup they were given. Like poor Matt Dillon.
Yeah, and that was something that kind of like Matt was sharing with us with like the stream team separately. It was interesting seeing his thoughts as the event goes on. It was just like, well, I didn't really expect that, but then like when someone explained it to me, and then it was just like, no, you did your job, and the fact you did better because we thought you were going to get 2 points. So it was just like, well, hell yeah. I was like, yes, and here I was sitting on the side watching through BCP. Wishing I could be there because I was so excited every time. I was like, man, I didn't expect that. That's a great result. I also cheered when James got the draw. I was like, he shouldn't have pulled that out.
Yeah, like I would say like it's weird, right? Because like this comes from like going to a lot of like single GTs and master or
Mhm.
just events in general. Like we're just like, all right, I won by 2. This was great. I was like, I was like, and then you also feel like I got crushed, and then like, oh man, I got table top of 2, like stuff like that. But like in a teams event, like none of that really matters. Like when you take Matt for example, right?
Mhm.
We look at his first round. It's like, oh, he played into Maccabee's Naihan. He got 3 point. He got 317 on the differential skill. Like
Yep.
where at a single GT, you're just like, oh man, this was terrible. But on the scale, how we pair that round, like that was actually excellent. Because like at the end of the day, at the teams event, you're adding everyone's score together, right? So like,
Right.
and then let's say so because Matt got the bad matchups, and then but Chris got a good one. So I think Chris won
Yeah,
around 8.2.
Matt. Yeah, I've only seen 2. Matt lost 17-3. That's a net point for us.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then
Like Matt overall went 1-3 in the event, but like he got above points effectively in all of his matchups.
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like so like it's really important at the teams event to like not look at results or like,
Yeah.
and you just have to like play your games. Like that's
Mhm.
actually that's more important in teams than like singles. Like singles, you're end of the day you're playing for yourself, right? Like you're
Mhm.
whatever you do. Let's say you go 5-0, you go 4-1, you go 3-2. Like at the end of the day, you're just like you're playing, and then your results like realistically only matters to you, right? But like at the teams event, your every like battle tactic points you score like matters for the rest of the 7 people. So like there's like a big incentive to like you to not give up any points, like right. You just have to change how you think about the game.
Yeah. Like there was a funny thing Dylan told me about how he had Felbats kill a Varangard to get a tactic, which ended up getting 2 more points for you guys in that last round.
I watched that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, which is
two. It was 2 fell bats struck down a Varangard. You had no ready. He was literally like, all right, now you got to make 6 saves. You got to fail. I'm looking for 2 1s here, and he just rolled 2 1s. And Vanguard died.
Yeah,
and like in a singles event, you might not even like risk that
Yeah.
if in a loss like that because you're probably losing anyway. But in a team's mindset, that's just like you have to go for it because the extra points could matter and it end up.
It's nice also that every game plays out. There's no like okay, well I lose, like so we'll just talk it out here. It's like every game it feels like even if you are you think it's a bad matchup, or if you are winning, there's no point where you or your opponent are like, okay, well we'll just call it. Like you just get the rest, like you'll just max score the rest of the event, doesn't matter. Which happens sometimes at singles, whenever it's like doesn't know. I don't know that any scoring after this is going to matter for the differential, so it doesn't matter. But
all the time.
But in a teams event, it's like, no, we're gonna play all 5. We're gonna play all 5 turns. We're gonna play all 5 turns. We're gonna see how that differential shakes out.
It's
Especially with such a
super
large
important.
differential that we had at AoS Masters. I think it was like 37 points to 20-0. So there's almost always a point to try to play out and get more points,
Right.
Because it was very hard to. It was hard to deny your opponent from getting any points. Although I say that both Chris and Tom did in fact do that in one of their games.
They each had a 20-0 game.
They each had a 20-0 game. So.
Which is insane because, like you said, the differential was a lot to get the points.
You have to win by
just kind of just
more
shows.
than 37 victory points to get
Talk about getting shit stomped for that opponent.
But
Which kind of leads me. No, go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna finish off, but like the biggest thing, like this event compared to like the other teams event, it was just like I could physically see that people like mindset was not like prepared to like at a teams event, because you just see like people doing like things that they still have from a GT, which is right, because like realistically you got good at Warhammer by playing well at singles events.
Yeah.
Right, that's just how you learn the game, and then like you have habits that you created during your process of getting good at Warhammer, and
Yeah.
then like you have to get rid of like a lot of those habits at a teams event, and then you can see a lot of people just were not like used to it, and then just like doing things they do at the GT, and then which like and then at the end of the day you look at like the scoreboard, and then you can see how it reflected on some teams.
Oh yeah, I felt like there were a lot of matchups throughout all 4 rounds where, because of that kind of mindset, you had a lot of teams that were really close with some scores, and only like you guys and like Pac Northwest were the ones who were really pushing for separation. And I think you guys were the only teams that had a result where you had over 100 points.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think
I think there was like a 104 round one or something.
PNW had got 104. Pacific Northwest got 104.
Yeah, so you guys each had a round where you scored over 100 points.
Yeah, and then we got 115 on that one round, but that was almost all a pairings thing. That our huge blowout round was just because the pairings went very well for us, and our opponents, Team Kerr, great guys. They realized very quickly after pairings out that it was that thing that pair. It was like a lot of the times in pairings, it seemed like both teams were really like, okay, yeah, these are the pairings we wanted, because like both teams have agency. Coming out of that pairings, I think they knew that the pairings had gone our way a lot.
We'll get into it in a moment, but I remember watching those pairings and hearing about them as they happened, and I was okay. I was literally doing like the Vince McMahon meme. I was like, okay, okay, and then was just like, can we 8-0 here? And you guys almost got it, and it was great. But anyway, let's talk a little bit round by round to kind of see. As the coach from Southwest, does that mean that we have news? I see Rozzy Kuhn.
Yeah, that's
Love you, Noosh.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about round by round. First round, you guys had, I believe it was Ulgu, the Southeast, the Florida team.
Yes.
Talk about what was the idea going into the pairings for that matchup?
Okay, I have to preface this because I think we got pairings like a week before, like
Yes.
who we're gonna
Yes.
play. But to preface this, like in like around July-ish, I just started talking shit on that team for like
Most know his
pre-game.
team, you're gonna.
Yeah, pre-game talking shit for like up to like 2 months. 2 months.
You gotta.
I was like, you guys are gonna get like 7th or 8th, and then just like stuff like that. And then, so when you saw we drew them, it was like pretty good times. And then the first round, and then it was the first round. Like I think everyone gets a little jittery during the first round. So, but
Sure.
I think looking at how that results went, I think it went about expected. Like I could have scored some more points in my games, but I think overall, like the teams did really well.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to take word saves for like the battle round and a half.
God, Chris.
That round.
How could you forget to do your own pairings? Do your own rules.
I didn't realize that Trug hit on threes for his club. I forgot that for like the first 2.5, like first 2 games. Just forgot. I think like halfway through or like maybe 3/4 of the way through my second game, I remember I looked at his war scroll and was like, oh, his club does hit on threes. Oh, I was just rolling everything on 4 as if it was on 4s. So
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
So
I remember watching it because it was like a moment when Ryan's round 2 and he was playing against Slanesh. He's like all out tuck truck and he was hitting on clubs on 3s, and I thought I had a stroke, and then or like or I had to look into the rules battle trace on Slanesh. I was looking for like
you're looking for why
where the minus day was. Yeah. It was just I rolled his club attacks, went to his antlers, and I was like, wait, what didn't his antlers used to hit on 3s? Maybe his antlers hit on 3s. Pull out his card, and I went, No, his antlers do hit on 4s, but those club attacks I just rolled should hit on 3s. So that's my bad. I'll remember that going forward.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who has forgotten some of that kind of stuff. I played all of Hammerfest with my Deceiver hitting or wounding on 3s, wounds on 2s. Okay, lesson learned going forward. And
but first round was good. This goes back to a little bit to the car ride coaching thing, and then we just like so going into it, most team had well, everyone had Lumineth and Nihon. So
yeah,
we knew that if we just put down Doc, it was gonna get both of them out. Like there's no way they're gonna like what's it called, like not take it.
right.
So we did that, and then like the pairings go pretty well. So we got Matt daughters into their Nihon.
Mhm.
And then on their side, we got they got their Lumineth into Nihon, which we can go into it later. But like people's expectations versus what happened on Lumineth versus Nihon went very poorly. And then like I think Lumineth overall, I haven't checked the stats, but I think Lumineth overall did way worse than what the teams expected for like a faction that because it was taken 8 out of 8 times. So like did not perform up to par, I believe, for most of the teams. But so we got first those 2 matchups, and then we got Ryan on the 3 objective mission into Slaves of Darkness, I believe.
Yeah, they put up Nighthaunt and Slaves, and we took Slaves. But it was Slaves like with only like 2 squads of 3 Vanguard and like the Nurgle veteran renown. Which could have been
your kind of list. That's less of a worry because you don't have like the punch of a 6 Vanguard list or a 10 chosen.
Yeah, that was like easily like one of those like the thing that worries me when we're on troll list is like a 6 Vanguard block or a 10 chosen block that just comes in double act by say just lift through all their ability and whatnot. That list was less bad. It also could have been a much more close game. But our recurring theme over the weekend was name characters getting popped by way less rolls than they should have been.
Who would have thought? Which gives me a chance to look into what Tom was saying about Lumineth.
Oh yeah, the stats. I think
Betty went 3-1.
Yeah.
And then, but
because there's an 04. There's an 04 in there. I know that for a fact. I forgot who, but someone did go 04.
I wanted to get to my 04 too.
And like Beasley was third, he went 2-2. But all his matchups were like close wins and close losses. Not a ton of separation either way. The most points he got in a game was 13.
And he was doing that on purpose.
Yeah. But Mike also same thing. He 2-2. Most points he got was a 14. Then Mackenzie got a 16, but also 2-2. Bart 12, 13 points. A lot of them are close win losses, which I don't think, barring Beasley, most people were not planning for that.
No, I don't think when you take this is a little tangent, but when you take like a faction that was like very 8 out of 8, like for most teams, like you were expecting that faction to be like your heavy hitter. Like it was either gonna be so well rounded that it plays into everything and it draws all the bad matchups out for your rest of your teams,
right?
Or it just dumpsters greens and then it guarantees when you pair them into specific things, they it will get you like at least a 16-4 minimum, which I think most team. I think there was like 2 things, like the list was not constructed well for that purpose, as in like it was very like they took very rounded Lumineth lists that was just good, that was good into a lot of like random pairings, so which is like a GT list, but I don't think you should have ever done that at a teams event.
No,
and
you in particular had been probably pretty focused on a Lumineth list for this event for a while.
Yeah, I think I basically went into it like it just like if the model in the list wasn't a Horakan or had very good spell casting, it was just not gonna make it. So like I didn't take a lot of things that people usually took, and I think people should have either drafted or did pairings differently with it, or build different lists with the
Mhm.
Limitless.
A lot of people did
Uh,
not hit the Control V button on the best units a lot, which
True, we did do that. We did do
we
that.
did do
Who
that
would've
a little bit. We did do that a little bit.
I mean, teams does naturally lend itself to more skewed lists for this exact reason.
Yeah.
If you have a good pairing strategy in mind, you can build lists that more fit that, which lets you have the matchups better that you want. If you don't really have a pairing strategy, then you kind of are forced to build more GT lists because you don't really have an idea of what you're trying to pair into.
Back to the pairings versus Olgu.
Yeah.
I ended up with myself into their Zinch. It was
Mhm.
kind of like I would think it was good, and then there were some things that didn't go quite as expected. So it was like a tight game that I think if I played it differently, could have been a lot more favorable.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up with Dylan. So I forgot the rest of these stuff, but I think we got pretty okay pairings for Soulblight. We got for and Zinch for Gavin.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we had James play into
Into their trolls.
Yeah.
And James, like, initially was supposed, like, the plan was that he was going to end up losing that game, right? And so pulling the draw was kind of ahead.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
And especially against an army like Trolls, which is one of those armies that you expect to score a lot of points because it's an extremely good defender army. So effectively neutralizing that effect in the matchup was huge for you guys scoring round one.
Yeah.
And then
It looks like Gavin played Noah
mhm.
East, and then
Yeah.
Dylan played Walter Brock. I don't remember what he played.
He was playing Bone Reapers, OBR.
He was
yeah.
playing Nagash, I think, right? Or was
Yeah,
he
he
just?
just-
No, I think he was. I think that was like one of the Catacross lists.
Oh, okay.
I think it was. I think because I was talking to Dylan, but I think it was Catacross with like some more gas or whatnot.
Yeah.
Which was just really, really, really tough nut for Soulblight to crack. But Soulblight's so good at scoring, anyways, that even though he was like, I'm not going to table this person, he scored. I think it was like 7-13 or something like that because he just kept bringing stuff back. And, the
And the
OBR
way
player
Dylan's list is constructed, if he only has to kill one thing for the Blood Knights to kind of turn on, and if they don't turn on, then they're at least like solid anvils pinning whatever he throws them into.
Yeah, it was like a good list construction for team's purposes because Blood Knights, for all their flaws, are at the end of the day, their models were 3 of saves and 6 of wars. So
Yep.
you realistically could expect them to hold out for 2 turns, and then with Soulblight, if you hold out for 2 turns, you can get your engine going and then start running around the map and just scoring points. So you can stall really well.
I remember. I think Dylan said the bad thing that went in that matchup was he lost 4 dry like a turn earlier than he was expecting to.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything? I'm going to ask this at the end of every round. Is there anything that you had to, if you had to redo it again, would you against Ulgu?
I don't think so. Maybe maybe in hindsight, I could have taken the other matchup again in the Scorched Earth pairings because that's where I defended.
Okay.
But like the map was like pretty spread out, so it was harder to like because it's eight objectives. He can play safe enough to always just score 1-2 in battle tactics.
Yeah.
Because there's always spots where he could teleport to and land. So like, and it ended up drawing the game a lot closer. So
That makes
like,
sense.
if I thought about it more, I should have taken an army that was not as quite mobile on the 8 objective maps
Okay.
for him, for what I wanted to do on that specific pairings. Like, besides that, I think everyone else did well. I think I think it's more that they would do a lot of things differently, which would make this a lot different. But I think we came out the round, I think, second after round 1 because it was
third. We were third. That's why we got third.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we got third on that round, which is all right in a team setting because this team's event was a little different compared to a lot of them because it was win-loss based and then it was points. So you realistically doesn't matter a whole bunch in 8 teams, but So getting wins is a little more important in this event than just points. So like we could have maybe done things a little more different to just focus on getting more like wins than points.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
The I think we lost Eli for a minute, but yeah, no, I think I think that I mean, in fairness, we didn't. I think we discovered that it was more points over wins, like like in the middle of like
We
round
all
two.
just
Whatever.
kind of just we just
It
assumed
was
it
by
was world.
points, and we just didn't read the pack or anything like that. We just showed up.
We assumed it was world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as usual, reading the pack will be good.
Yeah,
But
typically speaking, we probably should read the pack before we show up, but
But for our round 1 to 2, it was really solid because but it was still paired top down. So we ended up pairing into GER. I believe that was the Southwest
Yeah,
team.
they barely won their first round.
Yeah, they had they drew, I believe, the North Mid Atlantic and then beat them, which was good for really solid for them. But that ended up being into like one of like the very lopsided thing that happened in round 2. So
yeah.
So I think it's hard to say why they drafted the way they did, but what ended up happening was in this event, at least I was really hoping to draw Naihan because at least looking at people's list, there was the only thing that was difficult to really effectively neutralize was hex rate, but most of the team did not have many of them. I think the closest one was the Northeast team. Madigan had 30 of them, but
Yep.
if they had anything less than 30, like the shooting was just gonna be able to put it out, and then like with redeploying 4 is really good counter to Aurak, and then you can very easily get a big score on the Naihan.
Yeah.
So, but I think most people knew that, but with how they drafted, they ended up with Naihan as the last person that had to play into our last defender. So we just kept like pushing it down, and then it was stranded.
Yeah.
And they wandered all the way down to the last mission, which was the Pharaoh Foray, and then they played it into me. And he did not want that. I wanted that a lot, and then that ended up being like I think an 18-2 blowout for us. And then that happened a lot throughout the pairing sequences. I believe.
Yeah.
I don't remember who you guys played, but it went really well for us.
I played.
Yeah,
Go ahead. No, you go first. I already told you to go first, so go first. Then I'll do mine.
Yeah, I got hurt in the beast somehow on focal points, which is a big problem because like he only had 60 best scores. Like maybe if he had 80 best scores, he might be able to do a lot of attacks to kill hex rates, but not really. And in focal points, it's all about playing in the middle of the board, and Beast wants to play around the edge of the board. So it was just there was basically just nothing much he could do in that game. I just took all the objectives and pinned him back.
I defended on Star Strike into Slanesh on that one, which we were both 2-drops. So I won the attacker role, so I got to just be like, oh, the Star Strike came down on one side of the board, just pushed all the trolls over there. Going in round 3 was up, like 20-8 game or whatever. On round 3, it would have been a higher differential, but on round 3, both of the objectives came down on the other side of the board, which was a big pro, like right behind his like wall of stuff. So that was a problem. But I mean, even then, still, I mean, just once the Blitzbarb archers run out of they're lifting maybe a troll a turn, and then once they just walk over into them, Slush just runs out of steam before they lift enough trolls. Notably, that's also, I think, the only round that Matt and Dylan also got really good matchups for them, which is why we got such a huge point disparity, because I think Matt on Doc got paired into ogres. On like the Gorger list, and Marathi lifted like 11 gluttons out of the 12 block on like the top of one. And then Dylan, I think, paired into their
Lumineth.
Their Lumineth, that's right. Yeah, their Techless Lumineth, and Blood Knights ran across the table and just picked the whole army up. So
yeah, I think parents sort of went wrong off the bat for them because they decided to defend that first mission with ogres, and and then we put Doc and Soul
Blight.
Blight into them, and I think they were expecting us to put like Nighthawk and Lumineth or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes back into the pairing strategy. I was like, we were trying to get rid of our Soul Blight and our Doc as early as possible, either to fish out their heavy hitters and then just like, hey guys, score some points, or just like in this case, just 1-2 games. Because
Yeah.
I think in the 4 rounds that our Doc and Soul Blight went out really early. So
Mhm.
in the team setting, that just means that they're both getting the worst matchups.
Yeah.
Because the opponent's team have their repertoire of like choices they could throw, like just pick on this. But we won those. I think someone called a pause timeout, so I walked over and then Chris was already done, so I was like, all right. So I think it was a 19 or 20 in that round.
It was 20 for me. That was my 20, and I
So,
finished
like-
in round 2.
Yeah, so I think I wandered over because it was 8 tables. So I was on the very left side, and then the question was on the very right side. So I walked over, and then Dylan and Matt were like in river really, really favorable spots.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, pretty good. James paired into Stormcast that round too, which we also thought was really solid for us. He ended up getting a loss, but it was at that point it was like pretty already too far gone for them. So it was like, all right, cool. That's unfortunate, but it was really good.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think I know James played into Stormcast. I think Gavin played into Gloomspite on a also a heavy Gloomspite, or like one of the maps that Gloomspite's good on. There was like 2 or 3 maps that Trolls were good on in the second round, and I think that still ended up being like an 8-12 or whatever. Like Gavin still like brought it down to nearly a draw, but and then the rest of our games we won by almost enough to max out on the differential, but that was definitely just a case of like we said, like they told we talked to them afterwards, and they were like, yeah, no, the pairings, that was totally a pairings like snafu for them. Like it's just they had a plan, then they changed the plan, and then when they changed the plan, they ended up just having to draft a bunch of things into things they didn't want to, and then they, like Tom said, ended up with, even the very last card they were holding on to, Nighthawk, got paired into something they didn't want it to. So
Yeah, it's like like when it goes like sideways in a teams event, like it like just all falls apart basically. But we were pretty happy that because of what happened in round 2, that put us like in the lead, and then it was a 2 rounds a day, so we were done at the point, and then the next day we knew we were facing up against the Pacific Northwest, and then we were like, all right, cool. Which at that in the 4-round tournament, it's basically like playing for the finals.
right, yeah. Because I mean, I think they were. Would we have been? I guess that works out to we were the only like undefeated, like first and second, because like by the third, with 8 people by the by the last round, you were already having to pair, like the undefeated people were having to pair people who had a loss, because there would only be one 3-0 by the last round. So I think we were the only 2-0s at the time. So
yeah.
Yeah. It's like the finals, but not, because if they had lost their last round, then
We would have won
then
because
we
of the
would have
points.
won, even though we had lost to them because of how the points and stuff work. But obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah. But so that was a good round, good day for the team, and then it was pretty solid because after round 1, well, I think Matt and Dylan knew that they were just getting bust like very aggressively. Like we knew, everyone knew, the opponents knew, like that was gonna happen. But when they got their wins in round 2, it was like really, really, really solid.
Yeah. And I talked to Asher. I'm sure it felt nice to go from having to basically just get stomped on the first round and do your best for the team, to getting to play a game where you get to table your opponent. It's you get that little boost of serotonin of I got to score positive points.
Turns out we all like winning, and it is nice to do that even a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on round 2?
I don't think it could have went any better. Like maybe Well, maybe we could score like 5 more points because we were like 115.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, so we were like 5 away from capping. So,
Mhm.
but like it didn't like round 2 is basically how you kind of want. Like to win like a big team tournament, you need like you kind of need one to 2 rounds like that, depending how many
Yeah.
rounds it is, to just put yourself in the lead.
Mhm.
But it kind of just went like right to script. You got favorable pairings, and you got and you did exactly what you needed to do to score. Like that was a here's your opportunity to get close to cap. Go for it, and y'all did with gusto. Which leads us right into round 3. Y'all were already had talking about how you guys could kind of see you were going to head into Shimon after the after round 2 was done, because you guys were the only undefeated ones at the time.
Yep.
So what was your idea going into round 3 for pairings?
A little preface. So Chemon is the Pacific Northwest,
Right.
which is
All the
led
Seattle
by,
clubs.
yep, and 2 Canadian guys. Because
Mhm.
I believe it was really funny because there was a Team Canada, and then there was
Mhm.
the Pacific Northwest, also with 2 Canada guys.
Yeah, which had British Columbia carved out. So
Yeah.
Which is really
Team
funny when they
Canada
played
except BC.
into yeah, which was really funny when they played round 2 because there was 10 Canadians and then 6 Americans.
It's like a Team Canada practice.
Yeah, but it was led by Matt Beasley, which probably is, I'm just gonna say it, he might be the most prepared person in in the AOS setting.
Yes.
Like he
Mhm.
just he just
Probably.
knows. So he has every team had like made like spreadsheets and like computers where like they fill out red, white, greens.
Except
So
Mhm.
it was a really stark contrast, like the most prepared team, and then versus like
and then us. Yeah.
and then us.
It was team maximum preparation, which was
And then
PNW, and team minimum preparation, which was
was
us.
us. Yeah, where we
To be fair, we've kind of been shit talking for months how we just had the better players, and that is most of what showed through the whole event.
yeah, which if you look at the results, it was kind of true, but the prep came in here.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah.
this round, so I mean, we were not gonna change the strategy just because we were like winning or losing. You should play all the rounds the same. Like
Right.
randomly changing is not gonna. It was not. It would normally not change your result for the better. It will only be not good.
Right. So beyond trying to get like Doc and Soulblight out early and baiting their matchups, what are kind of like some of the teams some of the armies you were most scared of, depending on the players that they had specifically? Or what are your thoughts that they were going to try to do with their army comp specifically, given they had like ogres and such in it?
I think our strat was gonna be similar. Like we we actually ended up with a very favorable situation later
Mhm.
on in the draft, but like the results didn't work out. It's like, well, they have a Soul Blight list, and then if we can get our Doc or our Soul Blight player into the Soul Blight list, it was gonna be good in the draft for us. We did manage to get the Dodgers into Soul Blight, but I think the gameplay, the results didn't work out there. And then they had the ogres. We faced ogres earlier in the round before. Now we
Mhm.
knew that Carson plays his ogres a little more specific in a different way, and then the list was different. But we still thought that if we can get either BOC Daughters or Soulblight into it, it was gonna be closer for us.
Okay.
And then we wanted, there was a Nagash list the Pacific Northwest had, and it was just one drop with all melee and Nagash. So we thought the Slanesh list would do decently into it, given that it's like a melee denial style list.
Right.
That kind of didn't work out how we wanted it to. We got an 11-9 in there,
Mhm.
which was, I think we wanted it higher, if or we just assessed that differently if that was how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So we got some things we wanted, and then we were surprised by some things, and then
Yeah.
the other 4 people, like like it was spoilers, right? Like all the 4 of us all won all of our games, so that like didn't So
Mhm.
that part worked out, but then like
Yeah.
the other part did not. And I think that was where prep would have been good.
Mm-hmm.
Not like
And
prep.
it was
Like,
one of those.
not,
It's not like you guys lost by 2 points. It was
Yeah.
supremely close, and there were like you got the 4 wins you wanted, and very easily could have pulled out a draw with the team had like a cup, like 1 or 2 things gone a different way in any of those losses that that you guys had.
Yeah, I mean, like my win that round was only like a 12-8.
Yeah.
Granted, it was against like it was like on the Vice into like Huracanum, and it just trolls troll like I can score all my points, but it's hard to deny score like him scoring his points whenever he just gives up on like like on the at the end of the Vice when he knows he's not going to get that objective, but he can
Yeah.
just deny me points. But I'm sure there's there's some things I could have done to try to get more points there. If that 12-8 had been a 14-6, then suddenly
Yeah.
we draw, and because we're ahead on points, we win the event. So
Yep. Like I know Matt was kicking himself over not taking that double when he should have. He played for the tactic, tried to get the points, dropped the points anyway. Could have played position a little bit better. James was lamenting that basically everything went wrong in that matchup.
Mhm.
There are a few different things, but sometimes that's how it goes.
maybe
Yeah,
maybe
good.
next time we'll have like one prep session. Maybe next time we'll have
Yeah,
maybe next time I'll show up to the one meeting we have before the event.
Next time we'll think about doing a pairings matrix. We won't actually do it.
We won't
Yeah,
do it,
yeah.
but we'll
We
think
won't.
we'll think about it.
because we're
Everyone's
technically.
talking about like limes and oranges and yellows, and I'm like, I'm colorblind, guys. I don't. And all
Yeah.
you're all this saying stuff you're saying is it doesn't make any. None of that stuff.
All I
means
see,
anything to
the
me.
only color I see is the light reflecting off the bad moon. That's basically where you were going.
Yeah.
The only thing I see is whatever color those little circles I got to stand on are.
I knew it was gonna be a tough round. It was funny because it's like we were playing the hall with tables where four on
Mhm.
right side and 4 on left side. So I was
Okay.
next to Chris. The first thing I look at him, he says to me, "He's like, fuck up my turn 1 battle tactic." And then
Oh yeah, I was tired Sunday morning. I deployed close to the chest like it's old close to the chest, and the new close to the chest you can deploy further closer to the edge of
Yeah,
the
you can.
table. But I was still playing old close to the chest in my head, and then I deployed wrong, and I called a tactic I couldn't do, and then I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm just gonna full send anyway. And then
I mean, let's be real, Chris. You played Gargants. It was just Gargants by a different name.
It's flying ethereal gargants. That's all
Yes.
45 hex right is. You just think of them
so
as
Flying ethereal
I
Gargants.
won 17-3. I could have gone 18-2.
You could have gotten the 18 too.
yeah, something similar like that happened on my side. So I was playing against Slaves of Darkness, and then my Whisper had 2 health left, and then I had to go take a point to get more. But he defiled it earlier, and my Whisper died. So I think I won that round like 16-4. I think, I think I was like 2
Yes,
points
16-4.
over. Yeah, so there was
There
like
was a
10
bunch of little things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like I know Gavin at one point dropped like I think 2 points because he thought like Vice was still 6 inches like old Vice, and it's say 3 inches on new Vice.
Yeah.
Same thing almost happened in our game, but I like in deployment I told Matt Beasley as he was setting up, he was like measuring 6 inches out from the edges, and I told him like, you're not going to control those if you start there, right? And he was like, huh? And I was like, remember it's 3 inches for the objectives now. And he
3
corrected
inches from
me
the
on that,
40 mil, which is
but
still
but
on the center,
yeah,
which is
yeah. Yeah.
Vice is fucking weird now.
but that we caught in deployment, and Gavin's one they didn't catch until like like the bottom of 1 or something like that, or like in the
Yeah.
first time. So I don't know how they resolved that, but
I mean, that's
there's like
better than
a few things like that we could have just 1 or 2 points we could have gotten in each game.
Yeah,
So.
for
Yeah.
sure. But like it's important to like cause like obviously like people like look at their older games like, oh, I could have done this and this. But you shouldn't focus on like obviously you could unless you get like a 20-0, there's always some more stuff you
There's
could have
always
done.
improvement. Yeah.
So like so in a team setting you shouldn't like go too hard on yourself because first A, there's one more round after that. And then B, everyone's you should just what's it called? Just focus on the thing. Like it already happened and then move on from that.
Yeah.
Because like we were and then we got 78 because we lost 78-82. But we were like still gonna be in the hunt if they because teams are pretty good, and then if they lose their round 4, we obviously would just win if we also win our round 4.
Yeah, you guys are basically in just win the last round, and and just do what you can do, and hope that they fuck up and drop in round 4 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, we were pretty alright. Like we saw the results, and everyone's like, "Oh, could have gotten a couple more points," which just happens after every round of a team's event. If you lose a close one,
Yeah,
like if you get blown out, then it's in some ways easier to think about. It's like, well, we all lost, so whatever, fuck it. Or
exactly.
like, or you like all won, but like that it. Just like stuff like that. Like we had lunch, it was good, and then we first thought we were gonna play Canada, like, but
Yeah.
and then because of the pairings, but then because it's the 8-person teams, they want teams to not play against teams already faced, so they have to like readjust the pairings a little bit.
Oh, so there was a rematch that had set up. What,
Yeah.
because of like the draw that happened round 3?
Yeah, it was a draw. There was an issue with BCP where BCP was kind of the draw as a win for both of the teams, and they had to fix that, and so we got paired to Guyran, right?
That
You
sounds
got.
right.
So I have it up.
So there was
Yeah.
it was New England, the Northeast.
Yeah, it was Northeast.
Yeah, Garen.
Yeah, Garen.
Yeah. This round actually had a couple of things that goes into teams event or small fields, which is so we match into the Northeast team, which is full of just all-time great people that play the AoS.
Yeah,
But
like
because-
everybody on that team is like a
Yeah,
murderer.
it's just
Every-
all
I
legends,
think
all
most, if not all of them, have been to Worlds in some capacity.
like amazing people.
Yeah,
But this was where something that happens in a small field where you get to communicate to people that because it was 8 teams of 8, so 64 people, but which is all basically in the room, and then everyone kind of knew each other, so you talk a lot, right, amongst
Yeah.
yourself, and then everyone was like friends, even
Mhm.
even in the competitive field. So in previous rounds, their Zinch players played against other Luminous players, and then it went like all right. So I think he got like a 4, like got like kept the differential down, and then they were like, all right, cool, we could defend, or play their Zinch into Lumith, which is what happened that round also. But I think I was the only one that did this, where I just full shoved, which ended up being a 20 against that.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
That was the round that Tom was walking around with his score sheet like 30 minutes after the game started, and
It's
it was
like
like showing me like he like leaned over to the game right next to me.
49.
It was like how many points that he had scored and how many points his opponent had. I was like, he scored 5 points, Tom. Like,
Yeah.
give him a break, man.
No.
Yeah,
No mercy. Cobra Kai.
Yeah, because just very short. He was playing the Zangor build, but
Mhm.
but it was like Zangors are good, but they he had like 12 disc and then like the foot guys and then other Kairos. But we were playing the sideways mission. I think it was Battle for the Past, or whichever one it was. And basically, I just like won the round and then spent all my CPs turn 1 to get as much damage out as possible. And I ended up killing like 11 out of 12 disc and then killed 19 of the foot Zangors. And then left it 1, but I kept it engaged so he couldn't. I kept it
He could
engaged
rally.
and
And couldn't bring it back.
yeah, I kept it engaged, but what's it called? But I also powered through, so my guys were still engaged, but outside of 12 of the shaman, so he couldn't bring a guy back. And then
There you
like
go.
he went, didn't kill too much. Like Kairos and the rest of the disc went into melee with Severith, but he got my rampage off, so they were -1 to wounds, so Severith didn't die. And then next turn I won pile and just killed her.
Sometimes you just gotta do it to him.
But it was just like but that happens deep into a team tournament where people like not know each other and communicate. It's like, hey, what happened here? Like, oh, how did you pair into this, and this? Like, these are just like information that people can find out. Also, like, if you just look at how like pairings go, so you can find out. But it's easier to just ask people. It's like, oh yeah, we played Lumineth and then it went pretty well. It's like, all right, and you get like info. but it's
Yeah.
like hard to quantify that because everyone plays the game slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the last round, I think the last round was me and Tom's quickest games. I played into cities, and
Yeah.
he put like his whole army shoved into me like top of one, but like didn't charge me. Like just got like right into try to pin me off the objectives, and Trug bonked his little stone and gave me +1 rend everywhere, and then all the trolls walked forward and just smacked like everything off the board. I rolled good. Like I mean, like he had me on like -1 to hit and wound and a 5 up ward on his hammerers, and I still lifted like 15 of them with 6 trolls.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was I rolled really hot on my like attacks into him on the first round, and then after that it was just I also
It
killed his
didn't matter.
sorceress like the top of one because she was like right between his stuff. So 3 trolls just got in there and just ponked her on the head and killed her. And then it was just the rest of the game was just him trying to just scrounge points together. I think it ended up like 18-2.
Yeah, that's what you got.
And Chris had the longest game of Age of Sigmar he played all weekend that round.
Yeah, I played all pretty much. It was all 5 rounds. I played it 4 rounds.
Wow,
But it
5
was like
rounds.
it was the closest game. I only won 15-5. And it was because like I've written to Roger, who's like Tom said earlier, you get to play differently for teams, and I think Roger was my only opponent who actually played totally correctly, which was he knew that it was a losing match, so he played for points the whole time.
Yeah.
And he was playing Wind Spirits, so I just had to keep chasing down.
Yep.
It was limited resources, so and not only that, but it's limited resources. So I win the roll. I had top of 1, and I pick up his wind charges immediately. And then, but he gets his wind spirits out to go dance around the board, and I win the roll off, but I give it to him because it's limited resources.
Yeah.
And I knew like I wasn't be able to chase down the wind spirits right away if I took it. And if I give it to him, then he starts losing objectives before I lose objectives.
Yep.
So I figured like, oh, this game's gonna go a while, so just let him have it to score stuff and just eventually chase down to the point where he has 1 wind spirit and the stupid river blades left, and I'm chasing them around the board until I catch him and finish the game. But it was an interesting game. It was the only one where my opponent didn't try to like do a double or do something crazy to win the game like you would in GT.
Right.
Yeah. Important tips for people playing on Teams events now or later in the future. You
Yeah.
cannot play to win the game if you're in a losing matchup. That will doom everyone on your team.
Don't try to play to win the game. You might end up actually losing harder.
I was telling people like all weekend, like especially with the differential being like you need like 37 points to win or whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
especially if you know you're in a losing matchup, if you go first round 1, score your 10 points, score max.
Yeah.
The next turn, or any turn after that in the game, you get 1 battle tactic, you will not get 20 owed. Like that's 14 points. You cannot get 20 owed. So like a lot of times I was like, just go first, score as many points as you can, and just
Yeah, I think especially in 4th edition, where if you
Yeah.
double turn, you lose the tactic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You only do that if you're going to table your opponent right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I never took the double the whole tournament.
No.
I never took a double. I never got double. We never changed priority in any of my games.
Yeah.
Taking
The
close
points
doubles-
matter that much more.
Yeah. Taking close doubles in the teams is oftentimes
Mm.
I think it's about 80% times
Mhm.
that it's just bad. Because
Yeah.
you're just down points. And then unless you can make it up, then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Also, I was wrong. I did get doubled. I got doubled on the first game. He had like a 2 on shifting objectives. My very first game, I got like a 10-point turn. He had like a 2-point turn round 1 because Bellacore came in and got beat to death by 6 rockets before he could power through away from me. So and no Dark Master that game, none of that stuff. I rolled like 18 attacks and 15 went through. So, Bellacore just evaporated. And then he took like a timeout to go talk to his coach and whatnot about whether he should take the double or not. Because he only had like 2. He was already down 8 points. He did take the double just to try to push me off of one of the objectives so he could hold on to it for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But he was trying to score. That was like an okay. I think worked
That
out
was-
okay for him because it actually kept me off that objective for basically the rest of the game. So
Yeah, he was
so-
hoping to make up the points for basically like 2 rounds after that. I can see it.
it was also the funniest like coaching thing I've ever gotten. So, because in teams, at least in the US, like when
Yeah.
the opposing team calls a timeout, you also get one also for like the same time around. So
Oh, I didn't know that I could. Well, you were playing. My opponent
yeah,
did
you
it.
could. But no, that's just the rules. But we didn't have a coach, so I was Chris or Ryan's round one opponent called the pause, so I was next to him, so I was like, all right, I'm also going over. So my first question to Ryan was like, what did he Bellicor? And he said no.
I did nothing.
He said no.
He didn't Bellicor anything. I went
What do
first,
you mean no?
and then
I was
Bellicor
like, what do you
died.
mean
Yeah, no, nobody got Bellicored.
so, like,
Bellicor got pulled off the table.
yeah, I was like, all right, so yes, Ryan's playing to slaves, and he's probably like a big block probably got Bellicor, and then the chosen, or the Vanguard probably went in and killed something. So like, I was gonna think about from that angle, and then
Mhm.
I walk over, and I just like, yeah, Bellicor died, and then he won probably, but I'm on the points, and it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
What
it
do
was
we do?
just I was just like, I was like, it doesn't really matter to me at that point whether he took Prior or not. 'Cause like, if he didn't take Prior right there, I probably was just gonna kill all the Vanguard, and then the game was, he had no point. He had no way of killing anything after that point. So it was
Yeah.
good that he took the Prio. But yeah, he like went and talked to his coach for like a while and had to take like a little break. That's also the only game that one of us timed out. I think I at the end of the game I had like 45 minutes left when he ran out of time. Because shifting objectives with trolls. My first turn took like 3 minutes.
Yep.
You know, but also named characters dying to way less trolls than they should have was a recurring theme. In my game against Matt Beasley, 2 rock gut trolls beat Severus to death over 2 combats, just because he didn't roll like any saves at all.
It's not usually how that goes, Ryan.
Yeah, Matt was like, that's crazy. I was like, that's crazy bad dice, man. If you had made either of your armor saves or any of those 6 ward saves, Severus would be alive.
But that's the game. The game is dice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people could have called timeouts more, because it's just something you don't think about, like,
Mhm.
because you're so used to like because most of these rounds are effectively you're playing as like GT winners like every
Right.
round. So like every round you're put into these situations where you have to make a very like critical decisions. But usually it's good to have like a second opinion on it. But I don't think people thought about that enough. I mean, like
I
most people
did.
had like way too much time on their clock anyways.
Yeah.
You could just step back and think about it. Like
Didn't
And that
even
probably
occur to
comes
me to
back-
call a timeout at any point in my games. Didn't even
Just to
think
say,
about it.
that probably comes back to just a lot of people not being familiar with the team's format and just not really thinking about it, because at a GT you don't get a coach. You don't like it. It's generally not
Yeah.
sportsmanly to have someone else come in and comment on your game.
Yeah, that's usually frowned upon.
Yeah. For
Quite
most
frowned
GTs,
upon.
if somebody else comes up just telling you how to play the game,
Like,
we're
hey,
gonna have a
what should we
problem.
do here?
Yeah.
Or helping your opponent, like, hey, you should do this. Like, fucking come on, man. So
But yeah, it was so we had I think we did pretty well. We got what's it called? Ryan into the cities. We got me into Zinch. We
mhm.
got Chris into the what's it
In
called?
Lumineth.
Lumineth, and then we
Mhm.
had Dylan. This was where the fell basket of the Vanguard for the battle
Yep.
tactics. So we got Dylan into Slaves of Darkness. We got Gavin Zinch in Naihan, which was that was just gonna always be really doomed.
Yeah.
But you got, I think you got 8 points, so it was really well, very well for us. We got James. I forgot who did James.
It was the Beast Mirror. It was Beast of Chaos into
yeah.
Beast of Chaos.
Yeah, his own
Yeah.
Jackson. Yeah.
That was a big brain move on their part, because there was the options was on theirs. The Northeast team got to choose,
Mhm.
and then Owen Jackson just took the Beast Mirror, and then James ended up winning. So that was like fantastic.
Yeah.
wonder-
I
how
think
much
Owen
was-
said he was like undefeated in the Beast Mirror or something.
I was
He-
gonna say, I wonder how much of that was Owen kind of just being like, I have played a lot of Beast. I have won a lot of Beast games against other Beasts, and
But yeah, you should.
this
I mean,
this
he
isn't
should
someone
have-
that I really know. I think I could beat him. And then James come out and he did his James thing.
Yeah.
He didn't hit Control V enough. He only had 40 best scores. We had 80.
Turns out twice as many best scores, twice as good.
Turns out pretty good. He had like
James was it-
6 Fulgors and 10 Centigores instead, I
It
think.
sounds like chess getting ads right now.
and it was a solid win too. He got a 14-6 win.
No, that like James did like I would say James did like out of the people on the team, like he was given like that's usually the hardest task where you're given a very specific counter
Yeah,
that you're never gonna get paired into, and you just have to pair into other things and then get points. And then he got a lot of points where that was like really helpful for the team, like especially round 1 when he drew against the pros from the Gits, and then he
Yep.
won the Peacemaker. Like these are like the games that like you're like pumping the fist when your team
Yeah.
team wins it. Like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah,
Yep.
because it's like Nighthawk wins, yawn, who cares? But Beast draws against trolls.
Is
it's
crazy.
like holy
It's like,
shit. Yes.
Yeah.
wait,
That's
there's so many more points. Like we expected to get points from Nighthawk. We didn't expect to get points from Beast this
Yeah.
round. That's crazy.
Like because his spot on the in a team setting is like often the toughest because there's some people that goes punches the green matchups. There are people that that just scrounge against the red matchups, and then there's the people just playing AoS.
Yeah, yeah. They're actually having to play matches that they could win or that they could draw. You know, the yellow and oranges are in some ways the hardest.
Yeah. I can talk about that later, cause about how each specific factions did just based on my observations. And then we were missing Matt played again. Who did Matt play against that round?
He played against Matt played against Anthony Trentinelli. He on his trolls on his.
So he got punted.
Yeah, that was. I think Matt came up to me at the start of that round and went, "Am I like just so I get this right? Like, am I eating shit this round?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're probably eating shit this round." Dude. I was like, "Yeah, you're eating shit this round."
Yeah. So
but he got us 2 points.
He got you 2 points.
Yeah. And then we ended the event. Also like Jeremy played into Soulblight, which was pretty good for us. He got one of the best case scenarios in every AoS games where you get table and win the game. That's always a banger.
Get table and win, yeah.
That's
the real gut punch.
Yeah. We got a solid win there, and then the events we had there was a ceremony, and then we got the highest scoring individual, Chris, award.
Yeah.
And then I think we out of the top 5, because it was like on BCP, so we could see the stats. Out of the top 5 highest scoring, 4 of us was on our team.
Yes, it was literally in order: Chris, Tom, Ryan, then Alex, and then Jeremy in the 3-way tie for 5th place.
Like play skill comes into effect there, but I think it's gonna sound really bad, but I think our prep
Incoming.
prep slash draft was really good.
Yeah.
40 minutes of prep.
I think our list. I think like somehow our lists were the most tuned.
Yeah, I think
also that's insane. Like,
yeah.
It was. I feel like being like a third party observer in this case and seeing how you guys prep a little bit in the event beforehand. This is very much a like we know we have Gavin and Tom to handle pairings for the most part, having done back-to-back Worlds events, knowing how the pairing system works, having everybody kind of being able to make lists that work well, very team focused, and then relying on the strength of our players, knowing that our 8 deep are all really strong, and just riding that to win. And like I said, you guys, like the point differential between first and second place, or between top and second, is huge. You had 382 points. Shimon won with 368. You had, yeah, they read the pack.
They read the pack. Yep, we got first. We have been getting. Do we want to talk about? I know earlier we got asked one how the pairing process works, because I know not everybody knows that. 2, we got a question about. Well, we got some other questions after that, but I don't know if we want to start with that one.
Yeah, okay, so I can go ahead and quickly explain the pairing process. Basically, what happens is that there are 4 battle plans, and you're setting up 8 matchups across 2 on each battle plan. For the first battle plan, each team will put up what is a defender team saying that this army is playing this map. The other team then gets to counter with 2 attacker armies, and the defender gets to pick which army that they get to essentially play into. So, for example, round 1, Team Aqshy puts down Daughters of Cain as a defender, and Ulgu counters with attackers Night Haunt and Lumineth, so they get to pick which one of the attackers just to take off the board early. They chose Night Haunt, so that's how that match goes. And then you kind of just keep doing that down to the end. And at the end, I believe you guys just for the last, since you both have 2 teams apiece, you both just place down a defender and place down your attacker and just reveal, right?
Yes. Which makes a couple of interesting thing on that part. The first person always gets the worst matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That's guaranteed. That's guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when the teams have their most options to see what they give you. And
Yep.
it's like, all right, you're either gonna get Matt's actually a perfect example of what happens at team's event for you as a first defender.
It's the
All
role
right,
that I
either-
thrived in on a team.
You're gonna get shot a million times by things that move like across the board, like turn 1, or you're gonna get run and charge, chased down by ghost horses. So like the round 1 guy is usually it's a very like super just sticky army like Zinch. Zinch, or you just have someone that just like, you're taking it. You're just gonna get ran over.
Gavin coming in the chat posting lies.
We were joking before the event. We were like, oh, we're trying to see if all of us washed up has-beens are gonna
Beat
be able to
Bulls
still
on the Vice
still
side.
do it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Another thing about the draft is the round 1 is really important. Round 3 is also the most important because you effectively pick the last 2 matchups.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Which is how that happens. Like, all right, hey, if we put this guy here, then Naihan goes into Tom. I was like, all right, he's getting this and I'm getting. So I think in that situation was we got Stormcast into James's Beast of Chaos, and I got a Naihan. I was like, wow, this is perfect, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, another note we were talking about James stuff earlier. I forgot to bring up. This was also James's first weekend playing Beast of Chaos. Period. We handed him the index when we got to the event, so he could look through the war scroll.
Yeah, I printed out the index.
He didn't get to play a single game before the event.
No, the army was delivered to him, and he was like, "Oh my god!" Like after round 1, he was like, "Oh my god, best scores have crits 2 hits."
He was amazing. Like he if there was like unofficial MVP votes, it was definitely James on this team.
It's definitely James.
Agreed. He definitely punched above his weight the most games.
With that being said, now that we've talked about the preparing process, we've talked about our comp specifically as a team. Looking back, is there anything you guys would have done differently, whether that's in the comp, in the list building, in general?
So this is a very good question, and then there's an interesting side point about this. Yes, ideally there's some things we could have had in the 8 that would have helped with the winning. But there's a very important thing about teams. If your players are not comfortable about playing certain things, you cannot force it onto them, because it goes bad, like really bad into like.
It doesn't matter if the army's good. If someone is not prepared to play it, it's just going to net loss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's not like. I know it's like in the everyone's like really good, obviously, but there's like certain things you just can't force someone to do. Not because like it's not like. Obviously, you should do it in like a abstract sense. Like, hey, we should definitely all bring Lumineth and Naihan and the Trolls.
Yeah.
But sometimes if your players are not into that, or like for whatever reason they're not gonna pilot that well, you should actually stick to what they're good at.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good lesson for people. If you're like, I think because like teams event are not very like a common thing until like recently in the States. But like,
not at all. We don't have them in Texas.
Yeah. But if you're like going into a teams like with like a group of friends or just people it's gonna go play in the teams event because they're fun, you should first figure out what people are good at, and then just if B see if they are okay with switching. If not, just let them play what they're good at.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like
Makes sense.
Jeremy in our comp, like his army ended up being really good in melee stuff still, but like I think Jeremy had a lot of leeway. Just be like Jeremy always plays really weird, specific kinds of lists, and we let him build something that we want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just kind of
Makes
design
sense.
the strategy around that afterwards once you see what you have.
Now, with that context, even more so, is there anything you would have changed given the heavy skew that the event ended up being, with everybody having Nighthaunt, Lumineth, and most everybody having trolls?
I think a couple of things. Warriors of Slaves to Darkness, I think should have been included because it was just such high variance
Mm-hmm.
for people to deal with. Is like, what happens if I get charged by 12 Vanguard and they Bellacore me? What happen? Like, it's such a high scoring army, and then the floor of Slaves to Darkness is very high also. Like, it's hard to really get blown out if you're playing Slaves to Darkness. So I believe that was
Yeah.
that would have been a good options. I
Mhm.
think most teams also brought Zinch, but I think Zinch should have been a almost 8 out of 8. Like, everyone should have brought it instead of Lumineth.
Yeah.
Because I
I can
think
see that.
Lumineth, if you don't play it very like all in on Hurricane, or like all in on like the techless thing, and just play as a defender, it was actually not a good fact. Like, it just like has like a lot of good rules. It was gonna go okay. Like, you can play a lot of 12A games, but I think there's
Mhm.
other things that would do that better.
Yeah.
But I
The,
think we really nailed like the Brumeth and Nighthaunt and Gitz armies, especially
Yeah.
like Tom sort of mentioned it a few times already. Like people kept pairing Brumeth into our Nighthaunt because like traditionally Brumeth's really good against a lot of little one wound ghosts,
Mhm.
but we were the only people playing nothing but Hex Wraiths, and that's just the whole Hex Wraith army sacrifices some damage output, but you just can't kill it.
Yeah.
You just don't have enough shots.
Yeah. And there's not enough shots, and also if they're not as skewed into Hurricane as Tom was, then you don't have as much of the anti-war tech to even push through some of the damage that
Even then, my first round opponent had pretty much the same as Tom. The only difference is he had the river blades instead of the banner blade,
Mhm.
and it just didn't matter. It's even with 2 units of wind chargers, it's just not enough. It's just not enough output.
Yeah, because
Um,
the breakpoint on Lumineth versus Nihon is how much each shot would decrease the output of Nihon army. Now, if
Okay.
you do every two one damage you do against a Blade Gate Geist Revenant unit directly neuters the output. Every one damage
Yes.
you do to a Hex Wraith unit doesn't matter
Doesn't
until you do
do.
the third one.
and even
So it
even if
makes
you
sense.
kill Hex Wraith, it doesn't change the output that much.
So it
Yeah.
makes sense
A
to
lot of the
Nighthaunt
output is
up
just
until
the
the point
mortal
where
wounds.
you have 45 hex wraiths and
Yeah.
you just aren't doing it. You just straight up aren't doing enough to scale the output down effectively.
just a
That makes
critical
sense.
mass of Hex Wraiths, and turns out it's really hard to deal with things that move 12 inches, run and charge, and do mortal wounds when they hit you, and then hit you again, and then charge while they're in combat with you.
And also have 30 wounds on a 4-up ethereal with a 6-up ward or a 5-up ward.
Like, yeah, Lumineth is good when their shooting can take out output. When they can't do that, they're not very good.
That makes sense.
It's hard
Go ahead.
to talk about, like, also just because I talked to Matt about this, about like Doc went on. I was like, Doc is good into a lot of armies. Those armies just aren't here.
Yeah,
Those
those
armies
armies aren't here.
those armies did not show up here. So it's it's one of those things of like we probably could have picked other like probably choosing like Slaves of Darkness, like Tom said, it would have been a good call to bring along with us. But also, I mean, it just, I mean, I think it was a safe bet that people were going to bring some of the stuff they brought, like Lumineth,
Yeah.
Trolls. But for what they were going to fill out with after that, it was kind of you only really know exactly how popular everything else is that everyone else is bringing once all the list comes out. By that you can't change what you.
Yeah, we do need to shout out Gavin because I did when we were testing with the little bit of testing we did do. I played a game against him. He was playing Lumineth and I was playing like a die hunt list I copy pasted from a GT that had like 10 or 15 hex rates in it and a bunch of other random stuff. And like we played and I won and the hex rates were doing dumb stuff the whole game. And then Gavin just posted the list next day of just 45 hex rates.
I remember that.
And it's like, okay, yeah, this seems stupid. And then I played the games that like, oh, it's dumb, but in a good
It's
way.
stupid.
And so
Gavin also pointing out something obnoxious about Nighthaunt is that the 5-mans are still annoying because they just ping you for D3 mortals as long as one alive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many guys are left, as long as the unit's still there. You just need one. And it's
You just need one.
Still can apply
Game is
save, all that stuff.
easy.
Another thing about teams is like well-rounded lists are very bad in teams. Like, 'cause what well-rounded lists are is that you don't have a specific weakness, but the other side of that is you also are not good at any specific things.
Yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none.
It's like I'm okay into a lot of these. So like in the pairing process, that is just not playable because you're like, all right, how are you into this? Okay. How are you into that? Okay. Like, okay. You just ended up with like things are like okay.
Yeah, or I mean, no army is perfect. Like no matter how well rounded your list is, you're always gonna have bad matchups. And so if you're good, if you're okay into 6 things and bad into 2, those 2 are what are going to be put down as attackers. Those 2.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you because of the nature of the pairings process, it does not lend well to having well-rounded lists because you are a weakness.
Yeah, because hey, turns out if you're defending, you're always playing against a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Like it's just like unless you're winning the information wars, like all right, I know this is good into them, but they don't know that, so I'm gonna get one up on them.
Yeah.
Matt popping in the chat specifically to point this out with his doc list that it had big wins and big losses, but he didn't get any of those matchups. So
you say that, Tom, but I defended into the Beast of Chaos, Tom. So I mean,
that's right. I did defend 3 out of 4 of my games, but I defended on maps that were, like it doesn't matter what army I play against as long as it's not like Nighthaunt, right? And whenever it's Star Strike, and I just get on the objective. Like then you can put whatever army you want into me. I don't think there's besides like maybe the ones I was worried about were like Nighthaunt kind of on objective control ones. I still think that would have nullified a lot of like the big win off the Nighthaunt because it would just take them a while to kill the trolls. The ones I was really worried about were the really damage heavy Slaves of Darkness lists, and those never even got put into me. So they the few times they were an option, they never even put them down. It was always like Nighthaunt and one list that I was like, yeah, I can play that. I'm like, sure.
Yeah. To be fair to us defending, it's like we basically just had like in the rock paper scissors scenario, we just had like a bazooka. It's all right. We're putting Nighthaunt down here. Like whatever you're down, we're just gonna
and
like,
delete.
Like there's no list at this event that beats 45 hex race. There's not one of them. So whatever you attack in the Nighthaunt, you're just choosing what's going to hit.
How bad of a loss do you want?
you could come up with you could envision a scenario where like maybe like a 12 Khorne Vanguard list doubles me and picks up a bunch of hex race, but even then when the round 3 when I got paired against the Pacific Northwest Stormcast player, he picked up 20 hex race that game. He was doing a good amount of output, and it just didn't matter at all.
It comes down to the fact that 20 is not 45, and you don't beat that list unless you lift 45. And even then, you might not beat that list anyway.
Also, Vanguard do a lot less damage when they don't charge. And what's never gonna happen when you play that hex rate to the Vanguard? They're never charging.
No, they're never charging. So not only do you neuter it that way, but also just their natural rend also just completely goes away. So you have you cut off them both knees and gimp their damage.
Yeah. But yeah, think there was a lot of other questions I saw, but I forgot what they were saying.
There's a
I
couple.
saw
Gavin has been posting in the chat.
I saw one earlier that we didn't get to. That was about with how rock paper scissors this current edition is. Do y'all think in hindsight you would have tailored lists to be harder counters if y'all had prepped more?
That's sort of what Eli was asking.
And Gavin kind of answered that also more in the chat. I'm just going to go ahead and say what he said. Like, in a perfect world, we flip Soul Blight and Doc into armies designed to make every game 12-8, but it wasn't realistically feasible.
Because I think our bullies were already like the most skewed they could be to what they did, right?
Yes.
There was something I was thinking about. I was like, if you bring a very specific counter into like, it was kind of like this, right? Like a lot of people brought BOCs. Like, all right, Bestigor is very good against shooting. Well, unless you also have another list that are very similar into that does what Bestigor does. Guess what? Your Bestigor is just never gonna play into shooting.
No. Yeah, you're never gonna see a shooting army because they're always gonna pick the other one, which in a way is also an advantage because it makes them not pick that one and makes them pick the other one. But if the other one isn't as good into shooting, then
Yeah, it's like all right, my options. Let's say if they put myself down. All right, and that happened round 1 actually. It's like, all right, my options are Bestigors or Zinch. Well, I can play into Zinch that every day. So.
Yep.
We also got asked earlier what was the most challenging part of the weekend.
Reading the pack, I guess.
Yeah, figuring out how the tournament worked was probably the most challenging part. Maybe we should have done that before we showed up.
Maybe.
I think it was pretty. I think our
chill.
tournament went pretty like, as in like nothing was. We're just people just play games.
Yeah.
It was just me and Gavin doing the drafting, and then everyone's like, "All right."
We literally would just show up and just let Tom and Gavin tell us where to go. We were just like, sometimes they would show us some cards of what we're getting paired into, and I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll play that, whatever.
Look, sometimes that's all you need. You don't need in a good team. You don't need 8 captains. Nope. You need a couple captains, and the rest are people ready to do their job.
I don't think we ever asked what Matt was good into. We just knew what he was bad into, and then he was playing those. Like in some ways, you knew. It was funny because I always knew when we did our draft correctly when our opponents was happy on what they got into our dock. I was like, oh,
it's like cool. That's
all right.
All right.
We're happy. All right, we're good. All right, good. Next.
Someone had asked if any Seraphon was at the event, to which I'm just going to politely laugh because no.
It was fun. Seraphon's actually the pinnacle of things you should never bring to a team's event because they're an army that it is so well-rounded, they don't even know what they're good into.
Yeah.
Yep. I played all of like 12 games with Seraphon this weekend, and I was just like, or Seraphon this year, and I just put them away. As a proper lizard man, I would never suggest them for, at least in 4th edition, would never suggest them for a team's event.
It's so weird because it's an army all built around melee, but they're really bad at melee.
And they're not.
They have a lot of they have so many mediocre buffs to make their melees really good.
They made Seraphon an extremely fair army.
It is. It's actually it might be the most well internally balanced army as all their things saves on force, hits on force.
Yep. Saves on 4, hits on spores. Your spells aren't bullshit. Like,
yeah, it's just like, oh, cool.
Your wizards got brought back down to earth while all the other god wizards got to go be bullshit.
Yeah, and then like your recursion happens on 4, so you're like, oh, sometimes things happen, and then like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it's like sometimes if you roll 4-ups, the army's great. If you don't roll 4-ups, not so much.
Yep, I've seen it with Crocscore. I've played a lot of games with at least one unit of reinforced Crocscore that I was just like, sometimes you just destroy the unit that you go into. And sometimes they don't do anything.
Crocscores are like one of the most frustrating parts about like when I was building Seraphon lists. I was like, all right, if I wanted, like an example came up with is like, all right, if I want to play Crocscores into trolls, which one should I bring?
Yeah. I have been saying that for weeks. I'm just like, there's my comparison point for trolls. Is like, look at Crocscore.
But
which
for
until the most recent fact were 50 points more and
Yeah.
50% worse.
but for 50 extra points, you got 1 extra wound, no ward save, and less damage. So clearly, Croxicores were better.
We have a spell for run and charge, and
Also, they don't heal.
they don't heal, and they don't get a natural +1 to save.
Yeah, like it's that plus like all right, 1 unit is anti-infantry, but it only gets the plus damage when you're fighting 10 or more dudes.
Yes.
So this just never happens against trolls. The other one has +1 damage all the time. Like if you have a skink unit set up always, but
Yep.
it's anti-monster.
Yeah.
Anti-monster, yeah.
So if they have a unit of like I don't know, like randomly 9 chosens, you're just like, all right, none of these do anything. Cool.
Yeah. It's
like if you
cool.
get like a charge, chargers like wholly within 12, you have the same damage output, but you lose out on the Ren. But you really want the Ren against like something like Chosen, so it's just like, yeah.
And the rent spell only works on Source. Really, the issue with Seraphon is that Source War everything's meant to buff Source, and Source Warriors suck.
Yes.
That's really the problem.
It's a great.
Everything is meant to buff Source. If Source Warriors were good, they would be a great melee army, but they're not.
Yeah,
so.
but they're not. They're trash. Gavin also pointing out everything needs a roll to work. You don't. There's literally nothing except your battle trait that you just get.
True. Slan for bring half a unit back. Lower change, put the dice away.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I was talking to
Nighthawk, just spend the command point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All recursion should be on some sort of resource system.
Even Gabe's
like
spend a command point.
Like
Yeah.
Alariel and the Slan and whatnot. All that stuff should just be a command point instead of a 4-up. I don't know why they just decided some armies you get a 50-50 shot at it, and some armies you can just pay to make sure it happens. Like good like Gits, you just pay a command point, which is a good system because if you're losing, you have extra command points. So if you're losing, you get recursion. And if you're winning, it's a tighter resource. So I don't know why they didn't do that.
And it's weird that like for Gits and Skaven, it's command ability on the terrain piece, and they just decided not to put it on the Realm Shaper for whatever fucking reason.
Well, Skaven also it's on the terrain piece, but you get to put down a new terrain piece every turn, so you can't lose it.
So you can't lose it.
Gits if they blow up the shrine, it's gone. So
yeah.
Also, Seraphon's sub factions are really funny.
Yep.
You have 3-up, teleport, but if you fail the 3-up, you can't move. Versus Hurricane, you just move twice.
Yeah.
At least they fixed that part about the teleport in the FAQ. But until this most recent FAQ. Oh, also it was only 1 unit, and it had to be one of your wizards.
Yeah. The skink sub faction though is pretty similar to Hurricane, right? Isn't it like you move 3 units at the end of the shooting phase for
3 skink infantry or cav units?
Yeah. So it'd be cool if they had anything that shot, the way that. I mean, it's cool for chargers. It's cool for chargers to get to move.
It's cool for hunters. It's cool for chameleon skins.
Yeah. They also only move D6 though. They don't move their whole movement profile like Hurricane do.
How the order armies got RNG power sockets? Got it. I love. Yeah.
I got really frustrated after Outlaw when I was like, I could do 2 or 3 tactics and win against players that I had a leg up on, or armies that I definitely had a swing advantage. Anything that was like a close, I probably lost out because that the other army had a rule that they could just do that helped in that matchup. Or like I lost a close match to Khorne because Khorne could just be like, blood tithe, here's the thing. And I'm like, cool. I lost against Gids because Gids could just Trogs could just be like, hey, I just do my thing. And I'm like,
the only variance for trolls is just, do I get on the circle before you? Then you don't get to have fun on that circle. Because if the trolls are already on the circle, you don't lift the trolls off the circle. They just sit there.
Gavin did also mention that the first round was the most egregious blessing.
For
Tom mentioned earlier, but we basically used Matt as the human shield.
Matt, I think Gavin said it earlier too, and I'll back it up. Matt was a trooper all weekend. Matt definitely got busted the hardest all weekend because he just was eating the bad matchups for us, and we appreciate him for it.
Yeah,
Matt, in his first event, not really understanding how the whole system works, just run it over.
I forgot who I told, but I was like, we didn't throw him into the bus. We drove the bus.
You,
Yeah.
you literally tied him up, put him under the bus, drove
Yep.
forward, then reversed, and then drove forward again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, we tied into the railroad tracks like in an old cartoon. Is what
Yeah.
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 And,
But,
but it's
like-
okay because he got the one round of stomping on ogres with Morathi to get his serotonin rush of tabling somebody again.
And by God, did he shred it?
He shredded those gorgers up.
Okay. Which leads me to one thing, or one question I have, especially for Ryan and Chris, being like, this is the first big teams event that you have done in person. Would you do this again next year if you were asked? And how
Yeah.
did you enjoy it? Just how did you enjoy teams compared to singles?
Do you want to go first, Chris? Or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course I do it again. You're right. This is the first one I've done in person. I've done all of practice games and
Yeah.
pairings with the Team America folks. But those were all on TTS. But no, it was great. A great event. Like I told, like especially I was telling James and Matt at the event, like teams is great because like you could be like James and go like 0-1-2 or something, and or like have like a draw and 2 losses and a win, and be like, but you're winning, you're still winning.
Mhm.
And also, you don't ever have to play the people from your own city. You don't have the GT curse of going to a GT in like at Nova and playing the guy you're sharing a hotel room with. Um, uh, and yeah, it's just the pairings dynamic changes how games go. There's you totally remove that aspect of bad, just getting an unlucky bad pairing like you might in a GT or something. You just get purpose bad pairings by Tom.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to go next year. I think we're probably are gonna try to make it a more competitive selection process for Team Aqshy at least, or however the regions end up shaking up next year.
Right.
Yeah, same. I thought it was great. I'd be happy to go back in next year. We'll see what the team selection well, first we see what the regions look like next year, and then what the team selection process and all that stuff looks like. But I'd be happy to go back again next year. The teams format was really fun. I really enjoyed it a lot because like Tom and Chris have said a lot. Like it's just a very different way of approaching the game.
Right.
Um, you are playing the game in a different way than you do at a regular GT. And also there's almost less like you can plan for it more, or like, yeah, maybe not plan for it because we didn't really do much of that. But you can like whenever you bring a list, that that the list you're bringing, you're gonna have some control over what type of games you're playing with that list.
Yeah.
Like troll, like the troll list I brought was was like terrible on like every map with 6 or more objectives, and I never saw any of them because we knew that, so we just didn't put it on any of them.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's nice to be able to kind of like shape the way that you play the game. It's nice having like a full like team dynamic. So regardless of how well or not well your game is going, you could still always be like, well, even if this game is like not going well for me, or if this game isn't going as well as I thought it would, as long as I'm still getting scraping out points here, hopefully that's still contributing to our total score better. So that's nice, and it also in a way like playing for points like that takes away the pressure off of like being like I need to win each game so much as like I know that I just need to do the best that I can in each game to
Yeah.
score as many points as I can and deny my opponent as many points as I can. And that becomes almost like the game in itself, which in a way is weirdly less stressful than just being like, I hope this matchup in map is good for me for my next
Yeah.
round. And I hope that I win that round because
Yeah.
of like the bracket pairing. So
Yeah, like
but yeah, it was good.
it's like playing the GT, but everyone's win condition was different. Like, all right, it's like
Mhm.
all right, like for me to win this, because if you go into a singles event, the goal is the same for everyone. All right, I have to score more battle points than my opponent
Mhm.
5 times to win to go 5-0.
Take a 5. Okay.
But at the teams event, it's different for every person. All right, Chris, you have to go 15-5 every round at least. All right, Ryan had to you had to do like you do similar things. All right, Matt, you have to score 2 points every round, and then you,
Yeah.
anything above that, you're a god.
Yeah.
So it's like just everyone has like different. Everyone has to do different things on teams. Like, all right, Gavin, you're only playing red matchups, and then people that you're playing the worst map on the worst matchups, and then figure it out, and then
Deal with it. Yeah. try to get as many points as you can.
so yeah, it's like different because you're playing you're playing like Age of Sigmar still, but like you're like in some ways you're not trying to do what the win condition says you should do. It's like all right, you have to because right in 4th edition, all right, you score 5 more points, you win the game. It's like, but you don't have to do that ever on the team's event.
Right.
Obviously,
And
it's like good if you do it, but like it's not like important.
Yeah.
It's not as important, and also it feels less bad when dice don't go in your favor, when a game doesn't go in your favor, because over the variance of 8 people, somebody should be having better dice if you're getting bad dice, right? Like everyone's had games where the dice aren't going your way, and like things don't go the way you want them to, but like it evens it out a lot more. Where typically speaking, whenever you have a worse game, somebody else in your team is probably having a better game.
Yeah.
Not
the
not necessarily, but
variance is way like lower compared to like just like regular Age of Sigmar games. Like
Because you have control
bottom of
over
one
the
prio,
pairings.
all right, it's like 1-on-1 you're just rolling off, and then like the first guy goes highest. You have to do that 8 times over a team.
Yep.
Like in theory, someone's doing like when you lose your important prio, your teammate's probably winning an important
Probably winning the important one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and then like it really comes down to like the pairing process.
Yeah.
And then everyone understanding what their what's it called, objective is, or like what they have to do.
Yeah. And
like
go ahead, Tom.
like I was just saying, like me, I have to make, or not have to, like my goal is to deploy and make plays that net the most amount of points.
Yeah.
Matt's objective is to just score.
Just score. Don't
Like he doesn't
get
like
20 owed.
he doesn't have to what's it called, win the game or do any of that. He's just like, all right, I got my like 20. Like my first round was 20 to 34, like just like stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that Texas Wargamer in the chat asking about how the team scoring works, and it's like the chat says that your team can score up to 120 points and a minimum of 40, and basically each game is worth 20 points, and it's a differential. So like how badly you beat your opponent is determines what your 20 differential is. So like if my round 1 opponent, I won by 32 points,
Yeah.
I think, and I got an 18, he got 2 points. Whereas Matt lost his game, but he lost his game by less points. He got 3, his opponent got 17. Add those together, that's a 20. That's what 18 and that's 21 to 20.
Yeah,
right.
So we're up by a point, or 20, 21 to 19.
21 to 19, yeah.
21-19, yeah.
And we're playing 8 games, so you add up those scores from each game. So like Tom's saying, like the goal isn't each person's goal isn't to try to win. It's to try to just get the most points you can reasonably be expected to get, and then if it all works out after all 8 games, the whole team should have more points than their team.
Right, like by the nature of pairings, you're gonna have 4 matchups where you're picking, where you kind of had a lot of input on the match, and 4 where your opponent's team did, right? So the goal is just, you don't want those, like they're all the same differential, like this is an 18-2, this is an 18-2, and then it would just work a draw all the way down. So all you're really doing is trying to make, if you get more wins than your opponent's team does, great. That means somebody played above their weight class, because typically both teams are gonna have 4 good matches for them and 4 bad matches for them, loosely speaking. So but if your bad matchup turns 18-2 and theirs goes 17-3, like they were saying, then you've net gained a point, and you just got to do that for net across all of them.
Yep.
Which is really hard, right? Because
Yeah.
at that point, you're not trying to win 4 games really hard. You're trying to win 8 games very close.
Which makes sense. And Tom, I want to ask you specifically, as someone with the most experience for next year, do you want to come back and play, or even like coach, like you had mentioned earlier, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I usually always play the team events. Like sometimes even with less what's it called? People that somehow I didn't want to be on the team. That's for California teams later this year, not for this thing. But he knows who he is.
I pretty much ask because I know Tom likes to play, agnostic of condition. Tom probably just plays more than I could probably pick a group of 10 people, and Tom probably still plays more Warhammer than all of them combined.
Yeah, no, teams is fun. You're just because it just changes the what you have to do to like do well. Like, and it's like, oh, one thing I don't think they just mentioned. I usually at least in this event and then like Worlds, every round you're playing against someone that's won 5-0 before. Like at the
Yeah.
GT, like day 1, you're like, all right. People walk up and say, oh, it's my like first game of 4th edition, and then
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, I just painted all these. I really just want to see how like Vizix does.
Yeah.
But like Teams Advantage, like people are just you're playing like a bunch of like winners, just like that are, like,
At least
really
at a team's event like this. Yeah. This was definitely like the higher level of competitive play that we could have seen from this country.
It's just tough, right? Because every round, usually you're not playing at a tournament where every round you have to like go deep into your pockets to try to like come up with like strategies and plans to try to one up your opponent. Usually, like early rounds of the GT, you just win through some discrepancy of like player skills or like how your knowledge is on like what the current climate of the AOS is. That's just not a thing you can reliably plan around to do at like this kind of event, because just like they probably know more than you, or
Yeah.
like similar amount. You like the only like play levers you have on your opponent is just like how good your decision making is
Yeah.
versus theirs.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone at the event knows very well how to play Age of Sigmar. Nobody's like, I mean, there like there are still some things where we had to ask about, like just because the edition's so new, people were asking about like
It
rules
was
and
like we're
whatnot.
4 months into the edition.
But like
3 months.
everyone you're playing against, like it's not their first game of 4th. It's not like, hey, I just showed up to this is what I had for 3rd edition. I'm showing up to play the GT with 4th edition. It's like, I'm sorry, this is going to be a very short game for your first game. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now, to segue, does this make you guys want to do more team events or try to have more teams-based events here, at least in Texas, given that we don't have many down here, but we have a fuck ton of single events?
I would, yeah. Like if we did more, more like teams things down um, down here, I would absolutely be interested in running them, or even like like just like coaching for them or like setting them up or whatnot. Because I think teams is fun. I think it's a very different way of enjoying Age of Sigmar, and I think more people, even if you're not trying to do like like masters, like competitive stuff, I think that
Yeah.
it's a very different way to play Age of Sigmar that more people should try.
And as a segue into that, if you are someone who's watching this stream and you are interested in doing more teams events, Tom had mentioned there's a California teams event. I don't remember when that is, but Jacob Berry, who's in the chat right now, is hosting a Nashville teams event. I think it's 5-member teams. It's February 6th, 15th, and 16th. And apparently you can sign up right now, and your team's $50 off if you sign up before Sunday. So that if you are new to teams and you're kind of one of those, like, I got a group of friends and I wanted to start playing teams events, that's a great event to go to.
Yeah, and like if I think we've at least those of us who run tournaments here in Texas have tossed around the idea of like a 4 or 5-man team event at some point. I know Gavin really wants to do like turn Texas Masters into a city versus city teams event.
That is
But
definitely an idea that's floated around for a while now, and I feel like after this event we could it's probably where we could get the most traction for doing so.
Yeah, and I think teams is just one of those things that from the outside it seems really weird. Like parents seem weird, and it's just a different mindset to building armies and whatnot. Because for singles, you're used to having your army that you've spent all this time painting and building, and you're not sure and having to tune it to fight everything.
Yep.
But I think at some point we should definitely try getting going.
Well, I'm
I
down
think
for it.
the biggest thing, I think I mentioned earlier, the biggest thing like a barrier to entry for teams events is you have to separate that you're no longer depending your own success at like your event based on yourself. You're effectively putting how well you did at a weekend based on your a collective,
Yeah.
which is just very different than every other kind of one-on-one games, right? Like I'm really like
Even with the
it,
club aspect of singles,
Yeah.
like after round one, you're playing for yourself.
yeah, because like what's it called? At a GT, you're rooting only for you're so like you're maybe like drove up with some friends like I hope these guys do well, and then it's like I really want to win, so you're like you're mostly focused on like yourself and stuff like that. But at teams you're focusing on like 8 people. It's like I
Right.
hope we all do well. Like we
Yeah.
are. I hope we all like. It's just like you have to like separate like your mindset and things like because like there's some like in some like situations are alright, you kind of get into like these kind of like bad spots where it's like, oh, I'm doing really well, but my team like you can't ever have the thoughts like, oh, I'm doing really well, but my team's dragging me down. There, I'm like you're like channeling some very like negative energy. Like that's just like bad for everyone. Like
Right.
because usually that's happening earlier in the round, so you still have more rounds to play. That's just gonna be like bad the whole time. Like and then B that's like that's just not like productive because like you usually travel to like a place with all these people. Like it's just like not good to like you have to focus
Yeah.
on the success of the team.
Yeah. The focus
Like
definitely
who-
becomes like everyone, right?
It's
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah. As Gavin
like
puts in the chat, AOS is fun with the homies. More homies is more fun.
yeah. You also it's hard. You get in a spot where like the team is like tied. I think we did when we played PNW after like 4 games we were tied 60s or we were like tied 80 to 80 or something. And then it's like, all right, these 4 games, whoever like wins, all,
Whoever wins the matchups,
and then like
wherever's
we
the
came
overall win.
down to the last 2 games, and then it was between Matt and the Chris from PNW, and then Ryan and my bad Beasley,
Yeah.
and then it's all right. It just comes down to these 2 games. So like it also makes the stake whatever you call it, like the stakes a lot higher. It's like, oh my god, so like if he loses this prize, if he wins this prize, we 8 of us beat the 8 of them.
Right. Yeah. It's nice. Teams is nice. It's nice having like that thing of like, well, however well or poorly your individual games goes, all of us at the end of the day, this is how well
Yeah.
we did, right? This is
Yeah.
how like that you kind of get that when you go to events with other people, right? But then again, you might end up playing the people that you drove there with, right? Like you,
Yeah.
and then at that once you get to the table across from each other, then you're like,
I have to be
well,
half.
one of us
Yeah.
has to lose, so
Yeah.
sorry. It's like I do want you to do well, but I want me to do better. But like whenever you're all there, like there's no risk of that. Like we're gonna play against each other and have to take each other down. It's all just I want everyone that I came here with to do well, and we're all like, celebrating together or or thinking about what we could have done better together, right? Like
Right.
there's no like well, like now we have to take each other down kind of thing. It's always just however well we do, we all did that well together.
Yeah. Good question in the chat. It says, how did you guys feel about round wins being more important than overall points?
I mean,
In contrast to Worlds, which does it the other way around.
it's fine either way. It's just like it's really on us not reading the pack.
No, it sucks.
I
Terrible.
just
We
want
should have
to
won.
emphasize that. I don't. It's not the fault of their of
No,
the
not
of
at
the
all.
tournament
No.
that we found out round 3 is. Like,
it
We-
just changes. It kind of just changes your list comp,
it
right?
was open information like 4 months ago.
Yeah, it's not like it was a secret. Not like they were hiding it from us.
It's-
And also, like, you know, at the end of the day, it kind of makes sense that it was wins over it because it would have been weird if PNW had beaten us, and then the next round we just both played our rounds. Then it was like, yeah, sorry that you won every round, but we win because we got more because we had a bigger blowout round than you guys did, like on round 2. Like,
Yeah,
so I get it.
Yeah, it only like, especially with a small amount of teams. It makes more sense at Worlds where there's like how many teams were Worlds on like 18 or 20.
yeah.
Oh.
Worlds has like 18 or 20, and also they play 6 rounds instead
Or
of
it was a lot of teams.
That's the
like
other
the
thing.
chances of anyone being undefeated is nearly 0.
Yeah, that was the other thing is how many rounds they play 6 rounds at Worlds, so that makes it seem more like that. There, I can see why you would do like if we had played 6 rounds, I could have seen it being like, well, points probably should matter more because if you get more points over 6 rounds, even in your losses, that means your team was still
Yeah,
getting more points, right?
with only 8 teams, it would really only make sense to do points if it was like fully round robin.
Yeah.
If everybody got a chance to play against California.
If everybody got a chance to play against Gur. I
yeah,
love it.
what was I gonna say? Like either one's fine. I think for the first event in the US, like AoS Masters, it was better to have wins over points because it's easier for people to relate to. Right. The
Sure.
rounds win was still decided by points, but like the results is based on the wins.
It was based on wins, yeah.
Because then people are like, oh yeah, if our team wins more of our games, we still win. So I think that's good.
Makes sense. All right. I think that kind of wraps it up for us. Unless there's any last minute questions that are going to pop into the chat. This was awesome. As someone who loves teams but has only played like a couple online, I'm personally hoping to have like more involvement next year. I wish I could have traveled to Boston to even be like a coach or just like a cheerleader. I would have been so red ass for you guys as an Aggie playing on the Aqshy pun would have been great. So here I'm hoping for more teams growth to come out of this in Texas. Teams is an awesome event. I hope for those of you who basically had no idea what we were talking about going in, got a lot of insight and hopefully are a little bit more interested. This was a blast. If I came out and hissed at the opposing teams, no, I would have just been humping it, Jarrett. I would have been humping it, man. But this was awesome. You guys were great. Do you have any last remarks before I go ahead and just hit up some sponsors and shit to close out the stream?
No, thanks for having us on and letting us yap about our weekend for like 2 hours.
No,
It was awesome. I personally wanted to hear from you guys.
I just want to say, Jeff mentioned in the chat that they are looking to add 2 more teams next year, and I know that the Masters Council guys are already working on next year's stuff, and I think it'll be exciting.
Very awesome. Shout out to those guys. I only know like the involvement of Jeff and Gareth and like Corey, Ryan, I believe wrote the pack in particular. Shout out to those guys for helping get the organization just up and running because you don't have a recurring event without having the first event. And I know this has been in the talks for a while. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our own singles event coming up in November, Smash and Bash. It's November 16th and 17th. I believe the tickets all finally sold out. So if you are interested in showing up, reach out to Jeff in Discord or here. He's at Weird Knobs on Twitter, whatever. He can get you on a wait list.
Yeah, I think last year everyone on the wait list got in. So
everyone on the wait list got in. Yeah.
Also, finally sold out. They went on sale 2 days ago. They went on sale 2 days. Finally, they're sold out. Finally.
Yeah, and last year's wait list was also like 16 deep. So like everybody, things happen. If you're interested in playing, you can reach out to me. Reach out to Jeff. If you reach out to me, I'm just going to tell you to go to Jeff. So shout out to everybody who was new here, who popped in for the chat, whether you were people that I know who've never been on before, or people just joining us for the first time who are brand new. Thank you for everybody that followed. Thank you to everybody that subscribed. If you like what we're doing, you want to see more of it, please do all the random social media things like follow, subscribe, go to YouTube, hit that subscribe. We put all our games and stuff on there. Tomorrow we have a Vault Wars prep game between Jeff and Joe running their Vault Wars list because they're going to that event in a couple weeks and they're going to be streaming it for the Weirdcast. So that's fun if you wanted to see a regular battle report rather than just this stuff that we do. But we appreciate everybody for joining in. Feel free to follow us at The Weirdcast, spelled just like the Twitch name is. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at 16ER Ramos. You can follow Chris is at Danimo. Tom is at Felt Tom G something like that. We really appreciate you guys coming on and just talking to us about your weekend, talking to us about all this. Like I said, a lot of this is just to get team stuff in the eyes of Texas because teams is starting to pop up everywhere except Texas in the US. And so this was a blast. You guys are awesome. And shout out again, Teams event in Nashville in February. There's a Teams event in December in California. There's a Teams event in Massachusetts. So if you want to travel, which I highly recommend, super fun, get in on it. Thank you guys again for showing up. I think with that, I'm just going to go ahead and sign off and say, see you later. I'm not going to say it, Joe. You can't make me. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Hey.